What is good, homies? Welcome to Mikey Balls Fishing. I got a cool video for you all about conflict and conflict resolution, right? So everybody's fishing now. It's spring. The fishing is absolutely epic, but pressure, boats stacked upon each other, and figuring out ways to catch them like with a million people around is really the trick. So I had a little experience the other day. I went and fished probably one of the most pressured areas on the Tennessee River, and that's around the Pickwick Dam. There's a place called the Horseshoe. Everybody stacks up. You catch largemouth, you catch spots, you catch smallmouth. That's really the big highlight. But there's a ton of people there. It gets a ton of pressure, and I had a little interaction with a boat, which I got a little poetic justice from, which I'm going to tell you about, and also kind of show you a little sneaky thing that I figured out that we talked a little bit about last year, but I had no idea how powerful of a tool it was for these kinds of situations. So hit that like and subscribe button for me. I'm going to show you, first off, my little boat interaction that I had and how I handled it so well. Got you that time. Got you that time. That's a smallmouth, boys. I missed this fish once, and then I broke my hook off, and she done come back and got it. Nice 3-pounder. This is the old sneaker rig, the little cast sneaker rig. Actually, it might be bigger than that. Look up, Bo. Look up, Bo. How about that, boys? That is what we're looking for. Beautiful, fat old smallmouth. I think that's another smallmouth. These guys just drove, yep, that's another good one, dude. These guys just drove over right while I was fishing. That's like a 4 or 5 pounder, dude. Come here. That's a freaking grown one, dude. Look at that thing. We'll put her on the scale real quick, just see what she comes in at. That's like the second fish in a row. It's a little sneaker rig, dude. But that's the second fish in a row right off that little chunk rock spot. Oh, caught another great big one. Dude, when you're fishing this dam stuff, like this is a Horseshoe on Pickwick. It's very dense. There's a lot of people, so it gets a ton of pressure, so you can either kind of bang through, fish super like reaction, or what I like to do is fish a lot more finesse. And as you saw, we had a guy kind of blow by us right next to us, so you got to kind of deal with people being around and that, but just fish through it and just hope what you're doing is more on point and really stick with it, dude. And this is what happens. We got a great big one. It's a gorgeous smallmouth. Yeah. All right, let's see what she comes in at. Oh yeah, that smallmouth is 421. 421. All right, we're gonna get her released real quick because I want to get him back. So full disclosure, I went out there to throw a Ned a whole bunch. I love throwing a Ned for like spawning largemouth, smallmouth on that kind of like rocky chunk rock kind of cover. And that's what I thought I'd be getting into. And I had no idea that the Ned would totally not put out. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't catch dick on a Ned. I think I missed one, or I might have caught like a little rat. And what was interesting is that boat that you saw go by me, those guys were throwing live bait, dude. Like literally throwing like live shiners or like chubs or something like that. So they're literally throwing live bait. I cast my cast swim bait. I'm going to show you the rig in just a second too, but I cast my cast swim bait in there and do my little reel on the 8-pound test and that. And those fish actually preferred the artificials, kind of like swimming naturally, you know, but swimming versus that live bait actually swimming, which I found completely ironic. And that's poetic justice, dude. When you can catch a 4+ pound fish behind a boat throwing live bait after they just rolled over like the spot that you're catching fish, that's pretty full send right there. So I was kind of proud of myself because I don't want to argue with nobody. I'd rather just catch fish and have it, you know, kind of roll the way it did. But what we ended up kind of figuring out is I threw the net a whole bunch. didn't really have any takers. And it turned in one of those situations where, and we've talked about it more and more, especially like looking at forward-facing sonar and suspended fish, how these fish oftentimes want a presentation that's above them versus below them. And really, as I casted more and fished more around that day, that's 100% what it turned into. That's a great freaking big one. That is, or he was behind the rock. I don't know. No, that's a good one, dude. Look up, Buck. Look up. We gotta drop the poles. Huh, he ain't as big as I thought, but boy, did he freaking rack me. Dude, this is probably the strongest one we caught all day. And he ain't the biggest, but he's pretty big. But a nice freaking square brown fish, right? There's another one. Look at one. It's a jumper. Don't want to go up. See, that one is right next to the boat. I'm using my power poles to kind of sneak around and be quiet. And this guy bit it probably smack dab next to the boat. Nice brown one. Probably like 2.5, 3 pounds. We're gonna need pliers for her though. Dude, that's another nice one. Right next to the boat, right off that rock. Back you go. So let me show you what I was actually using, and you've seen it before. It's that Cast Prodigy. My buddy Ryan Hanks at Cast Fishing, he's a big linear guy, a big spotted bass guy, and he kind of put me onto it, and I started using it quite a bit for spots on Smith Lake last year. But the more and more I think about it, with all the pressure, and that's really like what was happening here. This place gets hammered, dude. There's so many people on top of so many people. It's just a reality you have to deal with. And with all that pressure, finding some kind of finesse techniques for like largemouth, for your smallmouth, for any bass species that you're actually chasing down is hugely key right now. And so what you do is you take it, it's almost like a Kitech style swim bait. It's just a little, I think it's a 3-inch, 3.1 inch, something along those lines. This is the color I was using, and then I was using like a green back. Looked a lot like the live bait that the guys were actually throwing. And there's a little rattle in the bottom of this. Take that out. Basically, this bait has a little cavity right there where that rattle goes. It comes pre-rigged with the rattle. And then all you're gonna do is I have a 1/16 ounce tungsten nail weight. Highly recommend using tungsten. It's worth the extra couple dollars because you need it to be small. And you're gonna take that tungsten weight and simply slide it into that cavity right there. You're creating something, I guess, like what you'd call a hover rig. I like calling it the sneak rig, dude, or the secret rig. It's super subtle. Now, FYI, it's very hard to throw. It's very light. I use a little Aaron Martin's drop shot hook, and all you're going to do is you're going to nose hook that thing. Make sure, this is a real important part, you don't want to thread it like super deep. I almost screwed it up right there. But at the same time, you want that bait very fluid, and you also want it very even down the middle, that hook. So hook needs to kind of like line up with the center of the bait right there. And then that's your rig. I fish it on 8-pound fluorocarbon leader to 12-pound cast braid. The cast braid, in my opinion, is the best finesse braid you can get. It's super limp and super soft, which makes it easier to cast. No matter what kind of braid you use, just make sure it's like high strand. It needs to be super high strand so you're able to cast, because this thing is very light and difficult to cast. And one of the keys that I did find is making a nice long cast with this allowed me to get it a little bit deeper, because it doesn't weigh that much and you're really slow rolling it. So you want to get it a little bit deeper with that long cast. And also, I think one of the keys is being away from the boat. And I want those fish not to hear the trolling motors, want to feel like they're halfway comfortable, they're halfway safe, until I drop the sneak rig on them, and then I hook a great big fish, right? So making those bomb casts, even though the bait is super light, the retrieve it's a dumb retrieve, man. All you're doing is just slow rolling it. Your biggest goal is to not make this bait roll over on its side. You can't reel it too fast because there's not enough weight, there's not enough kind of ballast in the bait to keep it straight unless you're very much slow rolling it. Here's the other key. You guys probably noticed it's a little hard to see in the GoPro. There wasn't seemingly a lot of wind, but it was blowing pretty good. This is not a high wind kind of bait or technique to use. If it's blowing 20, 25 miles an hour, it's very difficult. What I did is I tried to pick areas that were protected from the wind and also try to cast with the wind using my power poles. I got 10-foot blades. Best decision I ever made for boat placement on some of these TVA lakes, because a lot of water is 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot. So I can post myself down in 6 and 7 foot and cast up to 2 foot, 3 foot, and kind of line the boat up and take advantage of the wind being behind me to make those casts. It's hugely important with these little light finesse rigs, like I said, making the longest cast possible, and that's the way I could set myself up to do it. That's a good one. Right off the corner of that rock right there. Not as big as I thought, but he's pretty big. Now, got all wrapped up in my trolling motors. Look at that bug. I'm gonna put him on the scale real quick. That one thrashed us, dude. It's all about this sneaker. There's all these guys that already left and they're not getting bit, and like, this thing is really annoying to fish. But let me tell you, it freaking catches them. Yeah, 3.5. That's kind of what I thought. It's a pretty good one, though. We're gonna let her go. But we got on a little, she came right off the corner of a rock. Definitely a spawning fish. That sneak rig, dude. I wouldn't have caught her any other way. The Ned would have got hung up. Down you go, brown fish. See ya. We gotta retie. I was all wrapped up in my trolling motor. That's a giant. Let's get out of there. Oh, that's really bad. He's under like a limb or something. I just gotta let him swim out and hope he comes out. Oh, please come out of there. Dude, that's a freaking... No! Oh, fuck. That was a freaking monster. There's nothing I could do about that. Not gonna lie, I was pretty proud of myself. I've come a long way since when I got up here. I was overwhelmed when I first got out on these Tennessee River lakes. Between the diversity of the fish, there's some hammers up here. These guys can really catch them, and trying to understand how these fish work, how they move seasonally, is pretty tricky. So I'm finally starting to get a hold of it, which I'm pretty stoked about. But if there's some takeaways from this, it's about thinking outside the box, especially in these community areas. There's fish there. Fishing community holes is not a bad idea. A lot of these MLF tournaments, these bass tournaments, you see these anglers go into these community areas and they find little niches, little corners, little sections, or they make presentations that are slightly different. And that's exactly what happened. We lost the biggest fish that we had on. Literally, dude, this fish, it went into a tree or like a rock that had a hole. I watched a 5 to 6 pound smallmouth, dude, eat this thing, start tugging. And like I said, I'm using light line, so you don't have much leverage on these guys. And these smallmouth are absolutely crazy. He went inside a tree and I was all freaking out, and I probably didn't do what I was supposed to do. But in the end, we came away with about I think 18.5, 19 pounds, which I'm pretty stoked about. All smallmouth. We caught a couple little largemouth, but no big largemouth. So a pretty strong bag with just smallmouth. But it was really about that finesse presentation, grinding, and taking advantage of this little rig and staying above these fish, you know, making those long casts and keeping that bait above, but using a finesse presentation, much lighter swim bait presentation than I'm normally used to seeing. This little cast swim bait has caught me a ton of spots, a ton of largemouth, and now a ton of smallmouth as well. It's super versatile, and you're gonna see more of these finesse applications that you usually only think about for, say, spotted bass and ultra clear water being applied in these more general situations when you're fishing semi-stained water like I was. Hit that like and subscribe button for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Try applying it on your lake. I guarantee you, you will be stoked about the result.